These times are strange, it's quite surreal. It's never been like this. Remembering the good old days when we could hug and kiss. We packed the gyms and restaurants and moved to public settings. We give high fives and drink at dives, hold hands and dance at weddings. Now the days are longer, yet the darker in the way. We're pressing pause on normalcy, just going day by day. But we can still make jokes and art, garden, dance and sing. Cook, read books, try on fun looks and learn about new things. We can talk with friends of ours and have a heart to heart, just so long as we all stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. It's the newest thing to do. Stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. The distance between me and you, 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. And when I say I'll keep you very close to my heart, it's purely metaphorical. These times are quite historical, so step aside, let's live our lives 6 feet apart. These times are strange, it's quite surreal. It's never been like this. Remembering the good old...
Well, if you're not, okay, you're there. Welcome to Sunday Night Stories. Let me hear it from your living rooms or your home offices or wherever you are. Yeah, give it up for online storytelling, live shows, and live theater. You made it. We made it. This is incredible. My name is Corey Rosen. I am here on behalf of 6 Feet Apart Productions for the first ever, I think, virtual production of Sunday Night Stories right here with you. And I'm just so excited to be here, to have you here, that we're doing this at all, that we can do this. Don't we live in kind of amazing, magical times? I think so. So let me tell you a little bit about what we're doing tonight. I'm going to cheat off my notes. Oh yeah, so we're gonna have a storytelling show, kind of like storytelling show you might have attended in the past, live in person. Only you don't have to, actually, please don't leave your house. Whatever you do, please do not leave your house. I'd like you to just stay and watch the show right here, because this is going to be like that, but from home. And so I know that a lot of you have been probably doing a lot of this for different reasons. Maybe you've had some cocktail parties. Maybe you've met with some old friends. High school reunion. My high school. It's my 30th anniversary of my high school reunion. Wants to, they canceled our reunion, so we're gonna do our high school reunion this way, right? So this is not going to be like that. What we're going to do tonight is going to be slightly different, and so part of this is going to rely on you, wherever you are, to help make this a thing. You deserve this, right? It's a Sunday night. You've maybe had a couple of glasses of wine, maybe a few more than you normally do. But what I want you to do is actually create, to the best that you can, a theater atmosphere, right? Like wherever you are. So that might mean turn the lights down a little bit. That might mean pour yourself a little glass of your favorite whatever, right? Maybe it means take your pants off. I don't know. Whatever it is to you, whatever going to the theater. Some people, that is going to the theater. I want you to do that thing. I want you to create that atmosphere. I want you to enjoy the show, because this is the kind of show we're doing tonight. This is called Sunday Night Stories. These are true stories that are going to be on a different theme every week. The stories are going to be short. They're going to be no more than 6 minutes each. So we're talking about short form. There's going to be a total of 5 such storytellers every week. There are some guidelines. These are not stand-up routines. These are not rants. These are not shopping lists. And they're also not going to like read off of their notes or things like that. So they're not going to like deliver an essay or a memorized monologue. They're just going to speak extemporaneously. They're going to tell us stories, and they're going to be on a theme. Tonight's theme is survival. Survival. So I know that you're watching. I think most of you are probably watching on YouTube Live right now. So go ahead and put in the chat, in the comments there, a time that you that you made it through. That's going to be my prompt. The time that you made it through. So So if you have something, maybe a little short story, a little something, tell me a time that you made it through. Maybe from time to time, I might call on those. Who knows? We'll see. Also, the MC. So I am Corey Rosen, but I'm not going to be the MC every week. You're actually going to have a rotating cast of MCs. Although I've been promised the MC from each week, like me, will get to also tell a story next week. I get to be one of the storytellers. So you're going to kind of get to know me a little bit, but I'm not going to tell a full story. You're going to hear 5 other stories. But then if you want to hear me, come back next week. You'll get a little taste of that. And finally, are we doing the hat thing? Yeah. Yeah, we're doing that. Okay. So there's a feature where you, the audience, can put your own name in the hat to be part of the show. So I'm not sure if that's happening tonight. It's our first time really doing this, but if it is happening, we're going to figure out how to do that. You will be notified, or maybe you already have notified. But in any case, we're gonna let you know about that, so you can also check it out. The best place for information about all this, by the way, is the Facebook page. I think 6 Feet Apart Productions on the Facebook. We'll have all the information, themes, stuff like that. And stuff and things. So it's going to be lovely, and it's going to be a nice night of storytelling. So hold on, I've got my own. I've got a glass. I've got a beverage. I'm stocked for 5 storytellers. Storytellers, are you ready to tell some stories? Audience, are you ready to hear some stories? Let me hear a woo woo. I can't hear you. That's more like it. All right, so please, even though you probably know that they can't hear you, but we'll know that because you're creating a theatrical atmosphere, please make some actual noise wherever you are. Almost knocked over my wine. Our first storyteller, Claire Hennessy.
Sorry, straight away I forgot to unmute myself. Hello everyone, and welcome to our very first Sunday Night Stories. In these really strange times that we're finding ourselves in, we're all surviving the best way we can, communicating electronically now instead of in person, which has happily given me the occasional option of not having to wear a bra. And a few of us are also seriously considering if some of our closer relationships can survive this constant 24/7 enforced togetherness without resorting to grievous bodily harm or even being arrested for manslaughter. When I first started dating Bug, we were already ahead of the curve in social distancing. We were actually slightly more than the required 6 feet apart, because we were actually over 5,000 miles apart. Because I was living in England and Bug was living in California. Bug was my first boyfriend back when I was 13, and then we hadn't seen each other for about 30 years. And then we've been reunited, and we're having this intensely romantic, long-distance relationship for about 2 to 3 months. We would speak to each other for about 2 or 3 hours, sometimes longer, every night on Skype. And Bug admitted that he'd never forgotten me, that he'd always thought about me over the years, and that he was, in fact, still in love with me. He would send me romantic lyrics from his favourite rock songs, and he even wrote love poems for me. I had high hopes for our very first Valentine's Day. So consequently, I spent an awful lot longer getting ready than I would normally to make myself look special. As I was showering, my 11-year-old daughter, Emma, wandered into the bathroom and asked me why I was shaving my legs. So I thought, well, I'm having a Skype date with Bug and I wanted to look nice. She looked at me like I was slightly mad. But Mum, she said, you sit down at your desk and you wear jeans the whole time, and he can't, the webcam is so fuzzy that he can barely make out the features on your face, let alone the hairs in your legs. I know, I said, feeling a little bit silly, but I just want to look special for him because I'm going to be wearing a skirt. She nearly fainted with surprise. You're wearing a skirt, Mum, she exclaimed. You never wear a skirt. She was right. I never wore a skirt. Now I began to feel really foolish. Well, I know. What can I say? Well, when I started to put on proper grown-up makeup, Emma realised this was going to be serious. This was a date. We both got quite excited. I think I may have even worn perfume. After the kids were in bed, I lit a candle to make it romantic, poured myself a large glass of wine, a bit like Corey's, and then I settled myself to wait. And as I'm ready and waiting, I was looking forward to showing Bug the new girly me, not used to seeing that. Thought I might stand up, give him a twirl, and also possibly, if he played his cards right, flash him a bit of my newly smooth legs. A couple of minutes later, the orange Skype bar flashed on my computer screen so to let me know that Bug was ready, was available to talk. After the first 5 minutes, however, it was clear that he was completely distracted with work and not concentrating on anything I had to say. I could see his eyes darting around the desktop. At one point, I did stand up and give him a bit of a twirl, and all he went was, oh, you look nice, as if I just asked him to comment on the shape of my eyebrows or something equally tedious. We finished the conversation soon after, and I ran upstairs, furiously taken off all my lovely clothes, slumped in front of the TV in a pair of jeans and a sweatshirt. Emma had been right. I was idiotic. I felt like I'd been stood up. The next night, I was still feeling really pissed off, a bit hurt and rejected. So when that orange Skype bar came up on my screen, I chose to ignore it. Every so often, I'd keep one eye on the TV, and every so often I would wander over just so that, he couldn't see me somehow. Obviously, he couldn't see me because I hadn't turned on the Skype, but to read his messages. And they all got a little bit more anxious as I completely ignored him. After about an hour, my mobile phone suddenly pinged, and I looked at it, and Bug had sent me a text. Now, I know it sounds weird now, but I taught Bug how to text, and this was back in 2006, remember? And he barely knew how to text. And it was like more shocking than if the Queen had sent me a text and told me there was loo paper available to buy in the stores. So anyway, I just thought, how fantastic, but I'm still going to ignore him because at least I have got some attention now. Another 30 minutes went past and I still just ignored him. And then I thought, okay, I finally cracked. Thought I will speak to him, but it's just to give him a piece of my mind. Nothing could have prepared me for what I saw when I opened up my webcam. I thought my eyes were deceiving me. There stood Bug in his freezing cold garage, standing well back from his computer, because that's where he worked, in his garage, wearing nothing, the silly Cat in the Hat tie, and absolutely nothing else. Just this. He was stark bollock naked. And the tie only comes down to his belly button. He was absolutely naked. He walked away, turned, gave me a twirl, waggled his bottom at me, and then came on grinning put his Skype headset on. When I'd managed to stop laughing, I said, "What the hell are you doing?" He said, "I thought I'd surprise you." You certainly did that. Apparently, because he knew how disappointed I'd been the previous night, he'd be standing there in his freezing cold garage, praying that his kids didn't come back from school for 1.5 hours while I had my hissy fit. Well, how could I be cross with him after a lovely gesture like that? In fact, I decided to move to California, marry him, and we just celebrated 11 years of married bliss. I'm just hoping that we still feel that way at the end of this shelter in place. Thanks. Bye.
Let's hear it for Claire Hennessy, wherever you are. Give her a woo, give her a yay, give her a clap in the chat, whatever you're doing. Isn't she the funniest? And you know what? I'm going to give her, just as a thing, because, I'm going to give her a twirl. That's just for you, love. Mwah. Such a delightful, wonderful story. Took me right there, and just a little saucy. So I asked a question in the beginning of the show, and so far I've only gotten one response in the chat. So I was sincere. If you do have an answer to this, go ahead and say it. So the question is just sharing a time that you made it through, and the only one we've gotten so far is someone who said, "Does 13 days of shelter in place count?" And I'd say, yeah, lady, you made it. You're here. You made it through. Maybe I'll see you in 13 more. We'll see. All right, let's keep this going. 30, some people are saying. All right, let's keep the stories coming. Do answer that question. Go ahead and in the chat, time you made it through. In the meantime, let's introduce our next storyteller, a terrific storyteller and a terrific person. Please welcome to your screen and woo woo and yay yay for JP Frary.
Hello. This is very odd for me to stare at a screen, but I hope you can see me. The Greyhound bus driver turned to me and he said, "There's nothing up there. There's nothing up there, kid." But I made him pull the bus over anyways, on a random curve on Highway 299, the road that goes between Eureka and Reading. I dropped out of SF State and I told everyone that I was going to backpack across the Trinity Alps in the middle of winter. It was raining. It looked like it was going to rain a lot more. I had packed beans and rice, a bow, some arrows, fishing tackle, and my only book was Walden by Henry David Thoreau. I had a map, and on that map, it showed that there was a valley about 3 days hike away, and that valley was below the snow line. It was a place where I could survive the winter by hunting and fishing. But I'd have to cross a pass to get there. The pass was about a 3-day hike away, and so I started right away in the rain, just hiking uphill. And in 2 days, I got to the pass a little faster than I thought, and I was pretty happy. But then the rain turned into snow, and it was a snow unlike any snow I had ever seen before in my life. It came down in clumps and sheets, and you couldn't see through it, and it covered the ground so fast that I immediately had to set up a tent. And I got inside the tent. I figured I'd be there for 2 days or so. At the end of the first week, I was exhausted. I had to get up every 2 hours to shovel the snow out from in front of the tent because it was going to bury me alive. Every day I'd make a pot of beans and rice. And by the end of the week, my farts were sounding like a trumpet. I had to get out of there. I had to go home. I had to go home and admit to people that I didn't know how to survive in the wild. So the first break in the snow, I unpacked my tent, wound everything up, and I strapped my backpack to the front of my body. Because I didn't have snowshoes, I had to push myself through the snow until I got to the edge, and I could see a way down different than the way I came up. And that way down was steep, and I could slide. And in the beginning, it was a very controlled slide on my backpack, but then it became this out of control toboggan. And it was a miracle I didn't go off a cliff and get killed. But eventually I got below the snow line and I was able to put my backpack back on my back and hike. And pretty soon I came to a box canyon, a really beautiful valley, small and narrow. It had green grass and a stream. And in the stream I could see fish, pan-sized fish. I dropped my pack, I got my fishing tackle out, and I put one of those little red salmon eggs on my hook and threw it in the water. And I could see the fish, so I tried to bring the salmon egg closer to the fish, and they wanted nothing to do with it. Because it turns out I don't know how to fish at all. I spent 2 or 3 frustrating hours chasing fish around. I had to give up. I put my fishing tackle back in my backpack, and as I put it back on, I said out loud, "Your tail's between your leg now, boy. You got to go home." And I started hiking and crossing through that beautiful meadow. And at the end of the meadow, I saw my salvation. It was a deer. If I killed that deer, I could survive the winter there. I could stay for weeks and I could teach myself how to fish. So I put my pack back down and I took my bow and the arrows and I started crawling on my belly. Right away, I realized the wind was coming from behind me and going towards the deer. So he would smell me, so I had to go sideways and get around him. And that took me right through the poison oak and the blackberries. And I had to crawl the whole way. But eventually I got behind him. And I was about 100 yards away. And I was making so much noise, I thought for sure he would run. But every now and then he would just lift his head up and look around and then go back to grazing. It was one deer, a buck. They're not usually alone. It was very strange. So I crawled more. And at about 60 yards away, I was making so much noise. And when I looked up through the grass this time, I could see the deer was now head up and definitely spinning his head back and forth. But he wasn't running. I figured I had to get about 25 yards away before my arrow could hit him in the heart-lung area, my only chance to kill him. So I crawled more. And as I got about 25 yards away, I broke a willow branch that was lying on the ground, and it made a loud snap. And this time the deer swung his head right towards where I was. But then he wandered back. He still didn't run. I notched my arrow and I stood up to kill him. And I pulled that arrow back, and sighting right down the arrow, I could see a lump on the side of his head the size of an apple. From 25 yards away, I could tell it was a tumor. I was 18. I didn't know if you could get cancer from eating an animal that had cancer. I still don't know, actually. I watched that deer. I stood there with my arrow. I could see he had worn a path from where he was there all the way out into the meadow where he could eat green grass. And the path also went back down to the stream so he could drink, and then back between these two big alders where he'd made a bed. He was totally blind. He couldn't see me at all. I waved my hands. He couldn't see me. I stomped with my foot, and he stomped back and snorted. But he couldn't see me, so he didn't run. I couldn't kill him. He was making it in the wild, totally blind. I just couldn't kill him. I put my bow back in my pack, and I hiked downhill towards 299. Eventually, I could hear the cars going by in the rain. And I got all the way down right next to the highway, and I sat on my backpack in the rain for 2 hours, waiting for the Greyhound bus. And eventually it came around a corner, and I waved my arms. Hey, stop. And he pulled over. Shh, the door opens, and the bus driver goes, I told you there wasn't anything up there, kid. Thank you very much. I hope everybody's well.
JP Frary, everyone. Give it up wherever you are. JP, say something. One more thing.
One more thing?
Yeah. I just want people to appreciate the lighting. Look at that amazing lighting. I think JP has nailed online storytelling lighting. JP, say one more thing.
Say one more thing?
You did it. Thank you. All right. So give it up for JP wherever you are. Incredible, harrowing. It took me back to my time as a Night's Watch. It really took me to my time working the wall. So thanks to the few of you who have heeded my request. I did ask this question for you to go ahead in the YouTube chat, YouTube live chat. I'm also curious, where is everybody watching from? So maybe just put a thing in the chat just to let us know, because you could be watching from anywhere, which is one of the probably the most amazing things to me, is that you're at wherever you are. So go ahead and shout it out where you are. Put it in the chat so we know. Here's someone that answered my question. What's the time that you made it through? When I accidentally dropped my husband off a 60-foot cliff. Survived. He's my husband now. It worked out. But the guilt. Yeah. He will probably hold that against you just a tiny bit. We won't. We love you. So yeah, go ahead and put in the chat where you're from. Oh my gosh, we got people from Alaska, Oakland, San Francisco, Pleasanton, Illinois, Sebastopol. Terrific. All right, well, let's keep the stories going. Prepare yourself. Lower the lights if you haven't already. And if you have, lower your sweatpants. Okay, you can just keep your sweatpants on, man. Please. All right. Please welcome your next storyteller, Regina Stoops.
Thank you. Thank you. I was standing in my kitchen, surrounded by broken dishes and poop. It had been that kind of day. It had started out in church. I was listening to a 12-year-old girl sing Hallelujah. And that song has always gotten to me. Something about the lyrics are just haunting, especially the part, love is not a funeral march, it's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah. And I sat there and I listened to this beautiful voice from this beautiful young woman. And I thought to myself, how could she do that? How could she sing this song at her own mother's funeral? The girl's name was Isabella, and her mom was Rita, who had been a good friend of mine. And Rita was she was a big Brazilian force of nature. She looked like a supermodel and carried herself like a supermodel. And I, having absolutely no fashion sense, was always amazed at her ability to put together her outfit with hat and bracelets and scarf and glasses and shoes and purse, and everything matched, the whole ensemble. But in spite of being fashion challenged, whenever I was around Rita, I never felt less fashionable. Somehow being around her made me feel more beautiful. Something about her had this aura that would just envelop you and lift you up. She was never on time for anything, but we could never stay mad at her. When she finally showed up with that booming laugh and that big radiant smile and those really great shoes, all was forgiven. She'd look around and say, "Oh, am I late?" And we'd say, "Oh, no, 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 no. In fact, we started early, Rita. Sorry, our fault. We started early. You're totally good. You're fine." So I sat in the church and I listened to that song, and I realized I was angry, and I was sad, and I was determined. I was angry. I was angry because why, after being late for everything, did Rita have to be early for this? And I was sad. I was sad because I was never going to be enveloped in that aura again. And I was determined. I was determined to live life differently, because life can be unexpectedly short. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't take any of it for granted. I wanted to live in the moment. I wanted to not stress about the future, to not sweat the small stuff. I decided from that point forward, I was going to adopt my friend's glass overflowing attitude. I was going to practice Rita Zen. So armed with my new Rita Zen, I came home to find my family hungry and cranky, and also that the dog had escaped out the front door and was now running around the neighborhood. So I took a deep cleansing breath, and I suggested to my family in my best Rita Zen voice, "Hey everybody, how about if we go out and find the dog?" Unfortunately, my family did not recognize the new Rita Zen persona and ignored me. So I had to resort to Regina Rampage mode, which was more like, "All right, everybody, you need to get up, get out that door, and find the dog. There is no more screen time for anybody in the house until this dog is back in the house." The dog was back in the house. Later that evening, as I was loading the dishwasher, the dog wandered over and started licking the dishes until she realized that her collar was caught on the lower rack. She panicked, she backed up, and literally scared the crap out of herself. Panicked more, and then, like some sort of deranged sled dog, took off through the kitchen, dragging the entire lower rack with her, as dishes were flying and crashing and poop was spreading, and I'm chasing behind her trying to get her collar unhooked before she makes it to the living room. And at that moment, my son wandered in and looked around and took a big sniff and said, "This is officially the worst day ever." And I started to go there. I started to go on a Regina rant. And then I stopped, and it happened. It kicked in, the Rita Zen. And I looked at him and I just laughed. And I said, "You know what? I hope this is the worst day ever. I hope this would be an awesome worst day." As I cleaned up the dishes and the poop with my rubber gloves on, I imagined my friend Rita's just booming laugh as she watched that whole thing unfold. Because I was pretty sure that she had orchestrated that whole thing, because she knew that I needed some sort of crazy chaotic thing like that to get me through what was a really, really difficult day. And for once, her timing was absolutely perfect. Thank you.
Regina Stoops, everyone. Yeah, give it up, Regina. That was so good, so touching, so powerful. I was muted. I was muted. Did you hear any of that? Was there some lip sync? What did you think I said? Put it in the chat. I'm going to say something completely different right now, but I thought that was so lovely, so wonderful, and I really just appreciate you for who you are. Before our next storyteller, there's some interesting suggestions or guesses here. Here's a time that you made it through. My niece and I made it through Highway 101 from Eureka down to Windsor last fall during the fires. Had to go off at Windsor, all of the back roads to the RR to get to 12 to Napa. Wow, harrowing. And also different time, but it's like these are the times we live in. I just hope everybody is safe wherever you are, no matter what you're going through, what you're doing. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us. We have another story coming your way. So, all right, we have some more people. By the way, a lot of people have been weighing in on where you are from. Thank you in the chat. Go ahead if you haven't already, putting in the chat where you're watching. Let's hear it for New Albany, Indiana. Yeah, woo woo! New Albany in the house. Richmond, California. Portland, Oregon. Right? Vallejo again. All right. So good. Wonderful. So we have one more storyteller for you. And I got to say, this particular person is the greatest storyteller of all. Okay, she's the one who asked me to do the show, to host the show. So she's amazing. Unequivocally, please welcome and give it up. Really clap. You're at the theater right now. You have transported yourself out of your home, out of your office chair. Give it up for Mary Carouba.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for emceeing our very, very first Sunday Night Stories, Corey. It's great.
It is my pleasure. Thank you. All right. Now back to you, Mary.
Yes, and now I'm going to turn off my screen because these are very odd times for all of us, and I cannot look at myself while I'm speaking, which is what I see in front of me. Actually, I still see Corey in front of me. Do you guys see me? Yeah, okay. All right, so let me just turn off the screen. I know this is completely hokey. There we go. So I always believed I was going to end up in prison. And there was never a time throughout my entire life, from about the age of 15 on, that I didn't pass a prison or a county jail and think, there but for the grace of God, go I. And I don't really have time to give you the whole background like you're supposed to in a story like this so that you understand how I ended up where I did. So I'll give you the shorthand version. Traumatic beginnings, bad reactions, became a drug addict, became, involved in the life that one would expect I'd be involved in, being addicted to heroin. And I reached a point in my life, in my young adult life, where it was very clear that the forward trajectory of my life was only going to take me one of two places. It narrowed down to prison or death. And I knew that those were the two options I had. And I very unexpectedly was saved by this organization called Delancey Street Foundation. And I don't have time to explain them to you either, but suffice to say, they're a remarkable organization. It's much more of a social movement and a way of life than it is a program. And I was with them 7 years and developed a way of living in the world that allowed me to have the life that I've had for these last many, many years. So I was one of the really fortunate ones, but I never forgot how close I came. And prisons have always factored into my thinking throughout my life because I was so convinced for so long that that's where I was going to end up. So 5 years ago, when I got a call from Delancey Street asking me to go into a state prison in California and help them open a program based on Delancey Street principles, I jumped at the chance. And that first sunny day in the prison yard, after going through all of the checkpoints and past the gun towers and signing in and out and many different points along the way, I finally was let out onto that big, sunny, bright Solano State Prison yard and saw hundreds of correctional officers and inmates milling around, the correctional officers in brown, the inmates wearing blue head to toe. And I was just immediately hit with this wave of like suspicion and anger and derision. And that was from the correctional officers. Okay. The inmates, it was a completely different story because the inmates will look at somebody like me coming into the prison in terms of what they can get from me. So they have a completely different perspective than the correctional officers do. And in prison, it is all about survival. It's not about anything but survival. And you will see people in prison, you'll see grown men with the nub of a pencil this much left, maybe an eighth of an inch, that they're laboriously writing with because that's all they have. And when that little nub of a pencil is gone, they may not get another one. So somebody like me walking across the prison yard represents to them a potential supply line for anything from a new pencil to sex in a closet to sneaking them in a smartphone to, marrying them. I mean, the range is endless. So the inmates were initially very nice to me until they figured out, what Delancey Street was really all about. So I approached this cell block where we were going to house 100 men in this program, and an older gentleman stepped out wearing his prison blues. And I say older, but it's sort of hard to tell in there because people age in prison years. But he came out and he introduced himself to me, said his name was Charles, asked me to call him Charlie, said that he had been there for many, many years, 35 years at that point. He had been sentenced as an adult when he was 17 and had been in prison ever since. We had a really pleasant talk, very nice, and we started to turn to go into the building. And what I knew that he didn't know I knew was that in that cell block where they had these windows, well, generously called windows, they're really like these plastic panes that you can see out of, but they're so narrow that you can really only fit one eye. So I knew that there were eyes lined up in those panes like a family of raccoons watching our every move out on that yard. So we had this pleasant conversation, started to turn to go in, and Charlie sort of casually noticed my outfit and said, "Oh, you look really nice today." And he held eye contact with me for like a fraction of a second too long, not even a second, because actually a full second of eye contact, that's an uncomfortably long time. But this was like, oh my God, I'm already at 6 minutes. This was like an uncomfortable, oh my God, I'm already at 6 minutes. Okay, everybody calm down. Calm down. We're going to get through this. Let me just figure out how to tell you the rest of the story very quickly. Okay. So he held this eye contact for like a fraction of a second too long. It was so well done. It was so beautiful, this first little step that he was going to take to try to groom me. It was so masterfully done. And as soon as he did it, I stopped dead in my tracks and I turned around and I faced him and I said, "No, Charlie, no. This is not an episode of Orange is the New Blue. All right, nobody's sneaking you in a cheeseburger or having sex with you in a broom closet. All right." And then I sort of stood back and just smiled at him. And he looked stunned, like a deer in the headlights. He stood back for a minute. And then he started laughing. And then I started laughing. And then he was slapping his thigh. And we were screaming, laughing. And I knew that there were a bunch of confused raccoon eyes looking out at this scene. And I really can't explain to you the power of that moment. It was like 2 battle-weary warriors recognizing each other who had survived up till this point, you know, on wits or whatever, and we recognized and respected something in each other. And that little interaction characterized the rest of my 3 years there. And to show you how fast things go around a prison, when I left the cell block just a few hours later and walked across the prison yard through that large swath of inmates and correctional officers, I heard an inmate call out, "Hey, orange is the new blue. I see you." And somebody else said, "Hey, where's my cheeseburger?" And so it was uproarious. That was a running joke for 3 years. And Charles has since been paroled to Delancey Street. He's working the program and he's doing exactly what I did, translating all of his street skills into marketable skills, meaningful action, and real connections with other people. What's really happening is that Charlie is getting a second chance, unlike most of the people that are in prisons. And that means everything to me, because there, but for the grace of God, go I. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, Carouba, make some noise. Put some clap icons in your chat. Do whatever you do, because you've reached the end of our show. Before we sign off, before you go away, I want to bring back our cast so you can have a last look at these wonderful people. So hopefully they're all on the screen. I think they are. Everybody wave.
Yay. Bye, everybody. Thank you for
Bye. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening and watching.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching.
Hope everybody's well out there.
Claire Hennessy. Just a quick thing before you go. So we're going to do this again next week. If you would like to be in the show, check out the 6 Feet Apart Productions Facebook page. Search Facebook for 6 Feet Apart Productions. We're going to have a post that has a sign up. So you can put your name in the virtual hat. You can tell a story. Whether or not you've ever told a story or not, it's okay. This is a format for you to try things. We're staying together even though we're apart. I think what this is powerful. I think what you're doing by just watching this and supporting this is amazingly powerful. So thank you for that. Thank you for being here with us. It was a fun night for all of us. My name is Corey Rosen. I'm at CoreyRosen.com if you want to see things that I'll be doing, or Mr. Bagel 44 on Instagram. And final, just thanks to all the organizers, to 6 Feet Apart Productions, and to you. Have a great night. Thanks to our technical support, Bug.
Thank you, Bug.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Bug.
Bug.
Thanks, Bug.
All right,
Bye.
bye.
Very close today.
Watching.
6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. It's the newest thing to do. Stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. The distance between me and you. 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. And when I say I'll keep you very close to my heart, it's purely metaphorical. These times are quite historical. So step aside, let's live our lives 6 feet apart.